Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the case of Sydney Loofe. This case was suggested by Ian, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and of course if you have any more, please do let me know. Sydney Loofe was born on the 21st of August in 1993 to parents Susie and George in Neligh, Nebraska in the US. Apologies if I've said that wrong, I probably have. There she had two siblings, Mackenzie and Levi. Now Sydney was very dependable, she was a very responsible woman, and she also really enjoyed to be social. In 2017, she was 24 years old, she was working as a store clerk, and this is when she began talking to a woman on Tinder. They were chatting for a little while, as you do with Tinder, and they decided that they liked each other enough to want to meet up, and they did so. They arranged a date, they both went on the date, they both met up, and everything went really, really well, you know, so well so, that doesn't make any sense, but there you go. So much so that they arranged a second date. It's the next step in anything like that if you want to start something new, and that is what they did. So they had the date set and Sydney was getting ready for that. She posted this picture on Snapchat of her face, like a selfie, and she wrote on it, getting ready for my date. No, she wrote on it, ready for my date, sorry. And you know, she was really excited, and that would actually unfortunately be the last sort of thing like on social media or anything like that that Sydney would ever do, sadly. So we're talking about the 15th of November now in 2017, and that was when they arranged to go on this date. And that would again be the last time that anybody heard off of her. That was the last social media post, and from that day onwards nobody heard anything from Sydney. And the problem is that there's a lot of people out there who are not really into the phones, not really into getting back to you. They'll leave it, forget about it all day. People will ring you, text you, and you know that they are those kind of people and that they're not really one to respond straight away. But she would always get back to you. She wasn't the kind of person that would just leave it and not ring back. And she would always go to work, and the next morning she was doing work and she never turned up. So worried, you know, wondering where she was. And with it being very out of character for her, tried to call her. She did not answer and did not call him back. There was just nothing. So Susie obviously got really, really worried, and she ended up reporting her as missing, which was pretty much, it was the next day, the 16th, so she reported her missing on them. The police go down to her house. They find that her car is still in the driveway. They don't see any signs of any break-in whatsoever. Everything is pretty much in place. Nothing seems amiss. Nothing seems like somebody has broken in, taken her, you know, there's been a struggle. There was just nothing there. So this is when they go to look at her online things, like social media, whatever online activity, to see whether they find anything from there. And that is where they find the photo, the Snapchat photo, and the exclamation mark saying that she's ready for a date. They dug deeper and deeper, and this is when they found out she'd been messaging the woman on Tinder who went by the name of Aubrey. And I actually did read somewhere that the way that they found, before the police found that information out, was that I think Sydney showed her friend a picture of this Aubrey, or someone close to her, a picture of this Aubrey, and they actually went on Tinder and scrolled through all of the people until they matched with that person, and then they could show. I don't know whether they went to the police with that or the family or something, but I did read somewhere that that was the case, and obviously the police would then back that up by digging into the phone records and the activity anyway. They found out about the dates that they'd arranged, all of that, and that they were due to arrange another on the 15th, and then she went missing after that, very suspicious. So they just carried on digging, and all this time her family are out in the media, out in the public eye. They're trying to get people aware of Sydney being missing in case anybody has seen her or anybody knows anything. They are just trying their very best to try and find out some information about their daughter. Her friends also went onto Facebook, set up these pages, and they tried to help with the search efforts as much as they could by doing that and getting it out there. The FBI got involved not long after that as well. They ended up retrieving more of Sydney's phone data. That showed that her phone last pinged about 40 miles south of Lincoln. It was in a small town called Wilbur. And more specifically, they got it down to an apartment. This apartment was by a couple, a 23-year-old woman called Bailey Boswell and a 51-year-old man called Aubrey Trail. The pair, to say the least, had a criminal history. It was never anything really violent like murder or assault or anything like that. It was more theft and fraud and things like that. So obviously everything is kind of leading up to them. So they go up there, they go and try and speak to them, but nobody's home. So, and while they're there, the landlord notes this distinctive smell of bleach. They then go and get a warrant so that they can get in there and see what's what. They found that although the rest of the apartment was pretty messy, it was very cluttered, mess everywhere. They found one room that was meticulously cleaned, like even the walls had been scrubbed with bleach. It doesn't bode well with anyone. You've got an entire house that's just really messy and cluttered and dirty, and then you've got a room that's sparkling after a woman has gone missing and her last phone pings were at your apartment. Yeah, it doesn't look great. They did figure that the couple had left in a rush, you know. I don't know how, whether things were just strewing around, like you grabbing it and it's just all over the place. But that is what they came to the assumption of. Yeah, they probably knew that they were onto them and they legged it. And at that point, it just wasn't looking good for them. Then began the videos. They started making videos of themselves, posting them on Facebook and all over the internet, and they obviously were shared by people, and it got back to the police. They were of Aubrey and Bailey claiming their innocence. They did admit to being with Sydney. They said that she was there, they had a smoke, they hung out for a while, but they dropped her off at a friend's later on, and that was that. That was the last they saw of her. They also went on to say about how this is Aubrey, I think, talking in the video, how he had an extensive criminal history, but he would never ever hurt anyone. It didn't mean that he was a murderer, and he could never do such a thing. They also claimed that they were not running and hiding, which, I mean, it seems like to me that you are, but okay. They basically said that they couldn't go home because local media were all there. They were all outside the house and just causing them a lot of grief. They also claimed to have spoken to the police, but, you know, the police were saying that they hadn't spoken to them. And then they made more videos saying that the police were lying about that, which... why would they lie about that? It's more than likely that you went out on the run and have not spoken to the police, because that is what the police were saying, basically. So they're trying to say that they didn't do anything to Sydney, they're not murderers, they're not on the run, but they are on the run. Have I got that right? I just am so confused right now. Oh, and yeah, they just did nothing to Sydney. They, you know, dropped her off at friends, that was it. The police kept digging into the apartment, and this is when they found some strange things. They found a dog lead. Now, you may not think that that would be strange. However, they didn't have a dog. They found a sauna suit with your downstairs cut out of it. They found duct tape, zip ties, a hatchet, a plastic cloth set, like a plastic drop cloth and that had blood on it as well. They also found a book on anatomy, sounding a bit like a Dexter kill room to me. Just a little bit. At this point, with all of the things that they had found and everything, there was no sign of life on Sydney's part. Like, she'd not come home, she'd not rang anyone, she had not used anything. And then they found all of these things in the last place that she was known to be, and it was just looking more and more likely that Sydney was no longer alive. And that book, can you imagine? Why would they have that book? Unless you're interested in anatomy, which is, you know, anyone could be interested in that, but when you find out what happened to Sydney, then the book makes more sense. So they began looking in rural areas around the town of Wilbur. They were looking in the ponds and, I don't know, the woods, anywhere basically that they could have possibly dumped Sydney's body. And again, during all of this, her heartbroken, desperate family was just out there pushing it to the media, to the public, to just try and get all of the information out there and to keep her case in the public's eye. So as I said, they weren't on the run, but they kind of were on the run, and eventually the police caught up to them. They actually managed to pinpoint them using phone pings, and they tracked them using their phone data across several states. So they had crossed over all these different states, and they eventually caught them in Branson, Missouri. They arrested them immediately, but it was not to do with Sydney's case. It was due to they had stolen some goods and transported them across state lines, and that is why they had actually been arrested. I guess at that point they didn't really have enough to arrest them with regards to Sydney's case, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, at least they were in custody now. Obviously, they were protesting their innocence. They didn't do anything to her. They carried on looking at Bailey's phone data, and they found that on the day that Sydney had actually gone missing, that phone had travelled 200 miles all along these tracks, like dirt road tracks kind of thing, and back trails in Clay County. And something I actually haven't mentioned, if you haven't figured it out yet, Aubrey is Bailey Boswell. I don't know why I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah. Of course, the police went all along these roads. They were searching around, trying to find Sydney's body, because at this point, that is what they assumed they would find, sadly. And on the 4th of December, they found the first of Sydney's remains. And you may be wondering why I'm saying the first. That is where the anatomy book comes in. In a ditch alongside an isolated sort of dirt road, they saw a garbage bag with a hand sticking out of it. They knew it was Sydney from her distinctive body tattoos that she had. They carried on looking. They found more remains in 12 more trash bags along the different dirt roads. Most of her internal organs were gone, and they actually couldn't find one piece of her remains. It was her upper left arm, I believe, and that has still never been found. They did find a latex glove in one of the bags with blood on it too. They did an autopsy. The cause of death was said to be suffocation, and she had bruising that showed that she fought her attacker. Aubrey then admitted his guilt, but not in the way that you would think. He went on to say that him and 2 other women, not Bailey, Bailey was no way involved whatsoever. These 2 women were completely different, but they were all having sexual relations. And this is when Sydney got involved. They were all doing whatever together, and it went a bit too far, and he accidentally killed her, probably by strangulation. He, of course, didn't know what to do once he had strangled her to death accidentally. So he dismembered her body, put her in trash bags, and drove around throwing her out like trash, which is just so disgusting and disturbing, but that's what he did. He claimed all the time that Bailey was not involved whatsoever, with the murder at least, well, accidental killing in his eyes, and that she was only there to help dispose of the body. And she said the same thing. She said that she actually fell asleep in the living room whilst they were having their party time, and she woke up after everything had happened. No one believed it, and the thing is that they had evidence that totally contradicted it. The messages that were shared between the 2 never ever mentioned Aubrey being there whatsoever. Sydney went in to that date thinking that it was just going to be her and Aubrey, Bailey. There was also no evidence whatsoever found in that apartment that anybody else had been there apart from those 3 people. Sydney, Aubrey, well, Bailey, and, oh yeah, Aubrey as well. Sydney Loofe, Aubrey Trail, and Bailey Boswell. They also managed to find some CCTV footage that showed it was taken the day of the date, and it shows Aubrey Trail and Bailey Boswell purchasing the tools and supplies that police believe were used to murder and dismember Sydney and dispose of her body. They were both charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and improper disposal of human remains. Aubrey pled guilty to improper disposal of human remains, but not guilty to the other counts, and Bailey, she just flat out claimed not guilty on all fronts. This is where the case gets pretty strange. So, the police found that Bailey and Aubrey were actually sharing coded messages whilst in prison because they wanted to get their story straight. They were saying things like Aubrey was going to take all of the blame, he was going to really make out that Bailey was innocent and that she had nothing to do with it, and just make it look like that. honestly, you just can't even make it up. Like, they actually got caught doing that. The two were tried separately, starting with Aubrey, and that was in June of 2019. And the things within that trial were super strange, to say the least. The prosecution had 3 women as witnesses, and they came forward to say that they had been lured into an extreme group by Aubrey and Bailey, and they told them that they had to do all these things. They once told them that they were witches. They were told on another occasion that they had superpowers. They also made them call Aubrey and Bailey mummy and daddy. Honestly, pretty crazy, all the stuff that they were getting them to do. I believe if they were staying in a hotel and things, they were told that they couldn't see other people and they had to be, you know where this is going, don't you? You know the word for it that you would normally use with things like this. But well, yeah, that's the kind of group that they were in. Anyway, these women said that they finally left the group by November of 2017, which was just before, obviously, Sydney. They also said that Aubrey talked about killing and dismembering someone quite a lot, but they never actually knew him to carry it out, just talk about it. And it gets worse because whilst somebody was up on the stand, Aubrey gets up, he starts shouting, "Bailey is innocent, I curse you all," before he takes an instrument and tries to basically end his life in front of everyone. The authorities rush, you know, they get him to the hospital, and it was basically a failed suicide attempt. He survived and they just carried on with the trial. The trial lasted 3 weeks. More obscure things happened. It's quite interesting, actually. If you want to look into it more, then please do so. I'm not going to put it all in this video. I don't want to get too much into them after... I mean, a lot of this video is already about them. And not actually... Well, it is about Sydney, obviously. But I don't want to focus too much on their trial and things, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I just found it really, really strange. And eventually, on the 9th of June in 2021... Aubrey Trail was found guilty on all charges and he was sentenced with the death penalty. Bailey Boswell's trial began in September 2020. And they had physical evidence against her. Remember that latex glove that they found in one of the bags? Well, that had her DNA on it. In October, she was found guilty of all 3 counts. And on the 1st of July, her sentencing began. The defense argued that she had been physically abused in her past. All of this stuff. That she was a perfect victim of Aubrey Trail. And that she should not receive the death penalty. On the final day of her hearing, she begged the court, crying her eyes out, saying that she didn't want to be sentenced for her daughter's sake. And then we were all left hanging for a while because the decision wasn't made public straight away as to whether she was actually given the death sentence or not. If she had been given that death sentence, she would have been the first woman in Nebraska to be sentenced to death. However, she managed to narrowly escape that fate. It actually came out in November of 2021 that she did not get the death penalty, as I've already mentioned. She instead got life in prison without the possibility of parole. They needed a unanimous decision on a death penalty ruling, and they didn't get it. I believe 2 of them voted for it. I don't know how many people vote on a death penalty, whether there is 3. The way I read it, I assumed 3, but I don't actually know. So you can correct me on that one because I'm not sure. But they got 2 votes. She got 2 votes. And that's the end of the case. I mean, it's so horrific. Her poor parents and family were out there, and friends were out there looking for her, and they just didn't have a clue what had happened. At least now they're in jail forever. I mean, Aubrey's got a death sentence, so they are never ever gonna see the light of day again, but obviously that's just too late for Sydney. And it's just heartbreaking. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. That's all I have today on the case of Sydney Loofe. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!